So welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Alex, and from today's video, as you can see, I'm going to go through my birth story. I was hoping to film as much as I could of my birth story, but as I'm about to explain, I didn't get a chance to film any of my labour or birth, so I thought I would still come and just talk through it and potentially put up some pictures and just explain what happened. I know that when I was pregnant, especially towards the end, I used to love watching birth stories. You know, however that birth ended up being, whether it was what they'd planned or not, positive, not, emergency or not. I used to love watching them to prepare myself, try and see all the eventualities and what could happen or how things could go. So I'm hoping if you're heavily pregnant watching this that it gives you a bit of an insight into how birth could go for you. I know certainly looking back now that when I looked at a lot of birth stories, nothing really prepared me for mine. So I'm gonna, before I ramble on too much, like I say, I didn't get a chance to film anything, but I thought I'd just talk through it. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and like I say, if you're heavily pregnant, I hope at least it gives you some perhaps like signs and things to look out for should your birth go down the path that mine went down. I certainly, from all the videos that I watched, felt a little, not misled, because obviously that was their story and every birth is different, but I certainly wasn't prepared for how my birth went. So with that being said, I'm going to stop rambling. I'm just going to get straight into it. My baby girl, so I gave birth to a girl. She was born on the 22nd of January 2023, and today, as I'm filming this, she is 10 weeks old. I would bring her, but she's downstairs sleeping with Daddy. It's the only time that I get a bit of a break, so I thought I'd film this. But yeah, I'll insert some pictures. Like I say, it was 10 weeks ago, so I have made some notes to try and remember timings and things like that, and try and explain as much as possible. So her due date was the 19th of January. So she was born on the 22nd, so she was 3 days late, or 3 days over. But yeah, her due date was the 19th of January. So the 8th of January, roughly 2 weeks before our due date, I started getting tightenings. I say they were tightenings because I wouldn't call them Braxton Hicks, I wouldn't call them contractions. I don't think they were anywhere near as painful enough to be any of that. But I certainly felt like something was going on. I wasn't just sat there with feeling nothing. I definitely started feeling like as if someone had like started their hands on my back and just sort of like went round my stomach and squoze it a little bit. So it wasn't painful, it wasn't anything like that, but it was definitely something was happening. So that was roughly 2 weeks before, on the 8th of January. It all started around 7 p.m, so I'd have nothing at all throughout the day. I wouldn't feel anything. I'd just be going around my normal heavily pregnant waddling self, and then come 7 p.m on the evening, that's when these tightenings started. I'd go to bed at 10 p.m, sort of thinking, oh, is this the start of it? Could labour come on tonight? And then by the time I woke up in the morning, everything had gone back to normal. I wouldn't feel anything throughout the whole of the next day until 7 p.m, and then they'd start again. And this was for like literally the whole time for the last 2 weeks before her arrival. So January the 12th, so approximately like 4 days after I started having these tightenings, I had an appointment with a consultant just to run a few things, make sure that she was happy, and for me to go midwife led, and just a few things to do with my heart and blood and stuff. So I had an appointment with her to get those checked, and she just wanted to check whilst I was there that everything was okay. So she felt my belly and she wasn't too sure that baby was head down. With me being so close to the due date, obviously she needed to make sure that she was or not. She said that I could have gone for a scan to confirm it, but she was like, I'm going to have to book you in, you're going to be here for hours, don't know if there's any time. So she was like, the easiest and quickest way is for me to just do an internal exam. So I consented to that. I was happy to have that done because it just meant it could be done. Yes, I could go away. At all of my previous appointments, from literally like 14 weeks, she was always head down. So I was pretty positive that she was head down, but for whatever reason, the consultant wasn't sure. Upon the examination, she said that yes, she was definitely head down, and the reason she didn't know if she was or not is because she was very low in my pelvis, so she'd already started coming quite low. which is why when she was feeling my belly, she wasn't too sure if that was the head or not, because of how low down it was just hard to figure out. Whilst she was examining me as well, she also told me that I was 3 centimetres dilated. So at this point, the tightenings that I'd been having were possible contractions, but it was very, very early, very, very early labour. But still, I was 3 centimetres, and her and the midwife that was in the room with me said that they wouldn't be surprised. Basically, the reason they said this was because while she was doing my examination, I actually had my bloody show. Quite a lot of blood as well. I know it's different for everyone, but yeah, I ended up having that. And she was like, okay, things are definitely progressing. I wouldn't be surprised to see you back here tonight, or see you back by the weekend. This was a Thursday. So in my head then, I kind of thought, oh my God, I'm 3 centimetres dilated. I'm having all these tightenings. I've just had my bloody show. You know, it's going to be either tonight, tomorrow, or, you know, definitely by the weekend. So I was all prepped and ready to go. But Friday night, still no sign. So Thursday night, no sign, just carried on having tightenings on the evening. Friday, all throughout the day, had absolutely nothing. Come around 7 p.m, started having tightenings again. Woke up in Saturday morning, still nothing. Come Saturday evening, we actually ended up going to a friend's birthday party. And whilst we were at the birthday party, I started having these tightenings again because we were there on an evening. So they started again as clockwork around 7 p.m. And I thought, oh, never mind. You know, I know that they'll go away. I know it's not the start of anything. I'll just ignore them. Let's carry on having a nice time. And then as like 30 minutes went by, they started to progress, which hadn't happened before. So before then, they just sort of like, with these tightenings, they were happening regular, but they weren't getting any closer together or anything like that, or more intense. Whereas whilst I was at the party, they were actually getting more intense, where I was kind of having to like think, like, you know, someone was talking, I couldn't really concentrate on what they were talking about, because I was like, oh, okay, I'm like starting to feel quite a bit tightening now. And then I started getting lightning crotch. Some people get this, some people don't, but oh my God, it was painful. So yeah, I went and got my husband and was like, things are progressing, you know, the tightening seems to be getting worse. I've got this like lightning pain going on. I think we need to leave. And everyone at the like party was really supportive, and they were like, yeah, get gone. It sounds like she's on her way. Get yourself gone, get yourself relaxed. So we ended up leaving the party, and I was pretty certain, with everything that had happened on the Thursday as well, that she was on her way. So yeah, the tightenings carried on progressing. We went to bed at 10 because I was like, I need to get some rest. If this is it, I'm gonna, you know, go to bed, get some rest, make sure I'm well rested, prepare myself, try and sleep through these like early signs and stages, so I'm not there worrying about it, but also try and pass the time as much as I can. So we went to bed at 10 as normal. I woke up at 1:30 and went to the toilet. Nothing. Absolutely no pain, no contractions, no nothing, back to normal. So I went back to bed thinking, okay, whatever, it could still happen, but we'll see. Woke up in the morning, absolutely fine, still no signs. This is still a week before her due date. At this point, it's like 6 days before her due date. But yeah, after everything that was said at the appointment, with me already being dilated and the bloody show and everything, I really thought that that was it. I actually woke up in the morning feeling quite disheartened because, yeah, I was just back to normal, not feeling any tightenings whatsoever. So basically, that carried on for the next week. So I had a whole other week of these tightenings, these pains, always happening on an evening, always going to bed thinking, get yourself some rest because she could be here come the morning or in labour by the morning. But no, I'd always go to bed, wake up in the morning, absolutely fine. All the pains have gone. And then the next Saturday, so Saturday 21st, comes around, still no sign of baby girl. I'm over by 2 days at this point. And this is 1 week after the Saturday that I thought I was actually going into labour. So yeah, I've gone a whole week and still no sign. We were having dinner at our in-laws. We'd been invited down there to have some dinner, and I started having the tightenings again. Getting a bit repetitive, I know. But as we were sat there again, I was noticing that they were getting stronger. I don't know what it is about the Saturdays, but all throughout the week they weren't getting stronger or more intense or anything. But then on the Saturday they were. I was starting to sit there, and again, when someone was talking, I couldn't really concentrate on what they were saying because they were sort of getting like more painful. This carried on, but I thought, I'm not going to say anything because this happened last Saturday. We ended up leaving the party early, and then she wasn't here, so I'm just going to carry on until I'm at the point where I'm, you know, like my waters break or I'm having to breathe through them. If this is it, she's coming, she's on her way. If not, I might as well just carry on with the evening. So I didn't say anything. Then we got home later that evening and they were definitely more intense and they'd stayed. So I went to bed saying to my husband, you know, they're really intense again. I know it's the same as what it was like last Saturday, but, you know, this could be it again. I've been saying this for every single night for ages, but yeah, I was like, this could be it, because they are feeling more intense and they are getting sort of like closer together. But yeah, let's see. Who knows? Let's go to bed. And then 1:30, again, I went to the toilet. Nothing. No signs, no contractions. I actually sat there awake for a little bit thinking, you know, have I just missed it? No, nothing. Sat there for ages, lay there for ages thinking, no, I can't feel anything. There's no tightenings, no contractions, no nothing. So she's still not on her way. Go back to sleep, get your rest. Then, now we get into it. Now the exciting part is coming. At 3:30, I was woken by a contraction. So I was laying there in bed, I woke up and I was like, don't know what just woke me up, but I kind of feel like that was a pain that woke me up. And then I just lay there, you know, not sure what it was, just trying to get back to sleep. And then about 10 minutes later, I'm not asleep by this point because it takes me forever to get back to sleep. So I'm not asleep at this point. I'm just lay there trying to get back to sleep. And about 10 minutes later, definite contraction. Definite, like, I wouldn't say it was really intense, but I was like, yes, that wasn't a tightening, that was a contraction. So I kind of think at this point, okay, it went away. Now it's woke me up and it's keeping me up. This definitely could be it, because of all the times that's happened before. I've woke up in the middle of the night, I woke up in the morning, it's not there, and it's not come back until the next evening, which I'd woke up, gone to the toilet, and there was no pains, and now I've been woken up by pain. So I definitely kind of thought at this point, okay, this may be the start of it. So I was really trying not to think or wait, or, you know, like think, oh, another one's come in and like wait for it. I was really trying to tell myself, just breathe, get yourself back to sleep, because if this is early labour, at this point it was 3:30. I was like, you need to get your sleep. You do not want to be up and having the whole day of labour if you wake up at 3:30 and you've not had any more sleep. So I was just really trying to tell myself to go back to sleep. But I can't get back to sleep. I am just lying there, sort of out of fear, thinking, oh my God, this is it. I'm about to push a human out. Also out of excitement, like, oh my God, I'm about to push our daughter out and we get to meet her. So I didn't go back to sleep, but I just lay there trying anyway. And then at 4:15, although they say it's not like the movies, mine definitely was. I had another contraction and a massive gush, like absolute gush. And then because I was wearing pants and a pad and stuff, just in case, it actually ended up like squirting up my back, like too much information. But yeah, it like full on gushed in my pants and like squirted up my back, and I jumped out of bed, ran to the bathroom, like, what on earth is that? Have I just weed myself, or was that my waters? Definitely my waters. So I was stripping off in the bathroom and I was soaked. Like, some people say that, oh yeah, there's not loads of water, it's not like what they say. Mine definitely was. Like, my trousers, my pants, everything, even my t-shirt, because it was all up my back, was soaked. I was dripping. From what I could see though, it was all clear. I know they say to check it to make sure that there's no like meconium, like poo or anything, or blood or anything alarming. So I did check it, and like I say, because it was on my pyjamas, as far as I could see, it must have just been clear. I couldn't see anything else with it. So yeah, definitely at this point realised that my waters had broken. I was definitely having contractions, and this was it. I'm finally in labour. This is definitely the start. Now, out of everything that I'd watched, all the videos, everything I'd read, and especially with it being my first baby, they always say that labour can take hours, like, you know, 12 hours, 17 hours, 38 hours in labour. Especially with your first, they say it can be a very long process because your body hasn't been through it before, it doesn't know what it's doing. And a lot of the videos that I'd watched, people were sort of like, oh yeah, like, I've just had a contraction. They're like, let's go get like something to eat, or, you know, I'm just going to do my hair and makeup, I'm going to go get my clothes changed. Everyone that I'd seemed to watch had, you know, started off in early labour, they'd have contractions, but between the contractions they'd have a good 10 minutes to be able to like do their hair, do their makeup, go get something to eat, or like they'd be told to walk around the hospital grounds, or, you know, stay at home, all sorts of stuff. So I sort of had in my head like, yes, my waters are broken, yes, I'm starting to have contractions, but I've got hours. I want to stay at home and labour for as long as possible. I want to do like, my hair was a mess, so, you know, I wanted to look pretty for the photos. I don't know why, but yeah, so I was like, I'll do my hair, my makeup. My father-in-law was coming to stay and look after the dogs, so knowing that it was probably gonna be, we were probably gonna be in hospital for the next night, we needed to change the bed. So I'm like, right, okay, I've also just had my waters break in the bed, so we definitely need to change the bed. So I've got all these things thinking in my head, yeah, definitely in labour, definitely contractions, but let's start and get some jobs done, let's change the bed, let's do my hair, blah, blah, blah. So what I say to myself is I need to go get some clean clothes and some dry clothes firstly, because, yeah, all these need to go in the wash. So I go back into the room, and normally my husband can sleep through absolutely anything, but I go back in the room. As soon as I open the drawer to get some clothes, he wakes up and he's like, oh, what's happening? At this point, it's about 4:30. So I'm like, my waters have broke, I'm having some contractions, stay in bed, you know, I'm gonna go next door, just breathe myself through it. If I need you, I'll call you. He like jumped out of bed and was like, no, I'm getting off, I'm gonna be with you, which was really cute. But I tell him, I'm like, it's pointless us both not getting sleep. Like, if, you know, if this is labour and we've got hours ahead of us, go back to sleep, get your rest. At least one of us can be well rested. You know, I'm just, if I need you, I can shout you. But he was like, no, I'm getting out of bed. Like, you know, what do we need to do? So the first thing, I'm like, right, okay, my waters are broke, we need to change the bed, because if your dad's going to come up and look after the dogs and he needs to stay here, I was just like, we need to make sure that the bed's got fresh sheets on. So we start to change the bed. Now, with each contraction, I'm finding it harder to, you know, just take the pain. I'm finding it harder between the contractions. They're definitely getting more intense. They're definitely getting closer together. And the whole time, like, I just keep telling myself, like, no, I've got hours, don't focus on the pain. You know, I've read the hypnobirthing book, like, let's get breathing and, you know, really do it for as long as you can at home. That was like the biggest thing for me. So we start changing these sheets, and my contractions at this point were coming every 3 to 4 minutes, and they were lasting for like 50 to 60 seconds. So they came on thick and fast and definitely progressed very quickly. At this point, Dan's like, you know, can see that I'm in pain. At this point, I'm having to like properly breathe through them. The pain really came on quick and fast and very intense. So he's like, where's the bag? What do I need to get? Let's go, ring the hospital. And I'm like, whoa, chill. You know, we've got hours yet. I was like, I've only been having contractions for like 20 minutes at this point. We've got ages, we've got hours, just relax. I need a calm environment. But anyway, he starts like gathering things and he's like, no, call the hospital, tell them, see what they say. I'll go get the bags ready. And yeah, starts packing everything up. Little did I know at this point, hats off and thank you, Dan, that his, you know, state of slight panic and rushing us out the door was actually needed. You'll find out later on this story, but yeah, I'm very, very glad that he was like, no, let's get going. Like, I don't care what you're saying, pack the bags, get yourself in the car, we're going to hospital. But anyway, we call the midwife, so I call the hospital and I'm like, my waters are broken, I'm having contractions. At this point they were like 3.5 minutes apart, still lasting for like 50 to 60 seconds. So she was like, yeah, definitely sounds like early labour. You know, it's your first one, so it's going to be hours yet. Just make sure you're relaxing, breathing through the contractions. She was like, because your waters have broke, we just want to get you in, get you checked, just to make sure that everything's okay. But she was like, there's no rush. Have yourself something to eat, take your time, and we'll see you when we see you. So I was like, right, okay, yeah. She thinks it's going to be hours as well. See, Dan, we don't need to rush. She's saying everything's fine and dandy. Let's grab something to eat. Let's chill, make it over whenever we can. That quickly changed. So I started, Dan carried on to be in the bed. I started to brush my hair and get that done, but there was no chance whatsoever. I was really struggling. Not struggling. This sounds like I was really not coping. I was definitely coping. I was in control. I was doing my breathing. I felt like I was in control of the situation. But what I'm trying to say is that there was no way that I could focus on another task. So at that point, weighing up me doing my hair compared to just focusing on the contraction and getting through the situation, I was like, sod the hair, I don't care what I look like, I don't care about any of that. I was breathing through the contraction, and then the time between the contraction I was recovering. Like, it was taking me a while to get back down. It's not like I could be like, okay, contraction over, oh let's do this and oh let's do that. I was like having to breathe and calm myself down between the contractions because of how intense it was. So at this point I kind of think, okay, let's make our way to the hospital pretty sharpish, because one, it seems to be progressing really quickly. Like, my contractions are so close together, they're so intense, they're lasting like nearly a minute long. If I'm not close to giving birth, I am not going to be able to cope with hours of this at home. Like, I was starting to doubt myself, thinking, if this is going to be another 10 hours, there is no way I could have done that for another 10 hours. With how intense and fast and quick and, you know, full on everything was, I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to cope with this for 10 hours. So either I'm close to giving birth and for some reason it's just really, really quick and I need to get to hospital, or I still need to get to hospital because regardless if I'm close or not, I am not coping and I'm not going to be able to make it through hours of this at home. So I then was like, okay, let's ring your dad, let's tell him to come off, let's let the dogs out for a wee, you know, let's get the bags packed and let's get going. Pretty sharpish at this point. I'm starting to change my thoughts. So by this point it is now 5:15. So I woke up with the first contraction at 3:30. My waters broke at 4:15. I've now been labouring or been having contractions for an hour and it's 5:15. So we go downstairs, Dan goes to let the dogs out. I have another contraction. At this point I drop to the floor on all fours, let out not a scream but like a shriek sort of thing, and it just came out of nowhere. Like, it wasn't me doing it, it just sort of like happened and came out. But the thing that really worried me, that kind of made me think, okay, let's get going, is my body pushed. I didn't push, my body pushed. I dropped to the floor, let out this shriek, and I felt my body sort of like push the baby out. Obviously not out, but push something. So at this point I'm like, right, okay, yeah, let's get going. My body is starting to do its thing and I cannot stop it. So we get to the car. By the time we get to the car I'm having another contraction. My body is literally trying to push and I'm just like fighting against it at this point. We leave the house at 5:25 and the hospital is about a 35-minute journey. With each contraction I'm actually lifting myself like off the seat, because obviously you get in the car, you've got to strap yourself in the seatbelt, you can't get yourself into a comfortable position. And by this point, like I say, my body was pushing, and to what I now know, I was pushing and her head was pretty much coming out. So with each one, I was like lifting myself off the seat, thinking that is an extreme amount of pressure and I feel like something is pushing into the seat. So the only relief I got was sort of like pushing my feet like into the like footwell, pushing my bum off the seat and just really focusing like on my breathing and just trying to stay in control as much as I can. We do make the hospital in good time, not that we sped. So we arrive at the hospital at 6:10. So at this point it has been what, 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, like 2 hours 20 minutes. I am struggling by this point. So the 30-minute car journey was horrendous. It was the hardest, most painful, like worst thing I've ever experienced in my life, just because at that point I now know that, yeah, I was fully dilated and basically baby was ready to come. I'd had no medication or anything to help with the pain, and being in a position that you're strapped into and you can't get into like a position that gives you the most amount of relief, and for such a long period of time, like 30 minutes felt like forever. Yeah, that was really, really hard. So by the time we get there, I'm literally like, just shove the car anywhere. I am opening the door before we've even parked up, ready to get out and literally run to the doors. And yeah, the contractions just keep coming. So by the time I get out of the car, I've had another contraction. By the time I make it into reception, that was like literally a few steps away, I'm having another contraction in reception. My legs are literally shaking like underneath me. So we've made it into the reception and I'm literally there like shaking, sort of like just groaning and breathing and stuff, and the receptionist like, oh, first baby is it, as if to say like I was being dramatic and, oh, you know, you're probably only like 2 centimetres dilated or something, you've got hours ahead of you yet. I felt quite like belittled and really unsupported. But yeah, so we were like, yeah, first baby, where do we need to go? So they pointed us in the direction, and as we walked down the corridor there was actually a midwife that met us at the bottom with a wheelchair. Now I really don't like lifts and I will avoid lifts at all costs. I also now know that even if I am in active labour ready to push a baby out, I still will avoid a lift. So I was like, no, that's fine, let's take the stairs. So the labour ward was actually on the 3rd floor, so I probably had, yeah, a good 2-3 contractions just getting up the stairs. And yeah, like I say, my legs are shaking. I keep saying I'm struggling. I wasn't struggling, I was in control. And I look back and I think, you know, go me, I did that. But what I'm like trying to say is that like they were full on, like everything had happened so quick, they were so intense. Yeah, perhaps stairs weren't the best idea, but yeah, never mind. So they take us to the room. So we've got our own room of where we did give birth. And she starts asking me all questions like, oh, you know, what's your address? We're going to take your blood pressure. We need a urine sample from you. And my contractions are literally pretty much back to back at this point, and my body is still pushing and I'm still fighting against pushing it. And she repeats it, and she's like, what's your address? As if like I didn't hear her and I was just ignoring her, not looking at me thinking, oh yes, she looks like she's in an immense amount of pain and that's why she's not replying. So again, I felt like really quite annoyed and frustrated at this point. I'm not the type of person to like shout or, you know, say anything bad, but I was definitely like really annoyed and frustrated, just being like, you can see I am in a lot of pain. Like whether I'm in a lot of pain because I'm ready to, you know, push the baby out now, whether I'm in a lot of pain and I'm only 2 centimetres dilated, like you can see I'm not coping. Well, I am coping. I keep saying that I'm not coping, but you can see that like, yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. So either way, just wait for the contraction to end. And yeah, with it being my first baby, I just felt like they weren't really taking me seriously. Like I had told the midwife, or I told the receptionist when we'd got in there that I felt like I needed to push, which I think is why they brought the wheelchair and were sort of like, oh, well, get you up. But like I say, we sort of like got into the room, even though I was having back-to-back contractions. The midwives were sort of like, oh, you know, you will get your obs done and we'll do this and we'll do that. Not actually thinking, you know, she could be ready. And even like though I'd already said I feel like I need to push, I didn't feel like they were taking me seriously. And I'd always heard and seen on other people's stories that when they said, oh, I feel like I need to poo, that's when the midwife sort of cottoned on like, oh no, that's going to be a feeling to push, like let me check you. So I said that I didn't need to poo, I knew I needed to push, but I was like, oh, I think I need the toilet, am I okay to go? And she was just like, oh no, that could be your baby, let me examine you. So I thought, okay, finally you're going to examine me. Like I just wanted them to listen, and even though I said that my body was pushing, they didn't examine me. They, you know, they were just asking all these other questions, my address and everything before. And I was like, I kind of know what everyone else has said when they say that they feel like they need to poo, and the midwife's like, oh no, that could be the baby. So I just wanted them to take me seriously. And yeah, by me saying that, she was like, oh, okay, get on the bed, let me examine you first. So at this point, it is 6:10. She examines me, and as soon as she puts her fingers up there, she's like, nope, that's a head, a very, very low head. Let's get yourself in the pool. And I was like, how many centimetres dilated am I? And she was just like, not relevant, that's a head, get in the pool. So I know at that point, like I was completely dilated and baby had already started making her way. So I get into the pool, which is just a puddle at this point, because obviously they hadn't filled it up, not knowing how far I was, they hadn't filled the pool ready. So yeah, I get into the pool, obviously the water's coming in, but it is literally just a puddle around my knees. I was on sort of like resting my elbows on the edge of the pool, on my knees in the pool. But yeah, it was just a puddle at this point. So my body had already started pushing naturally. It had already started doing that job. The first push I'd had was back at home. It'd been pushing the whole way over and I was just fighting it so much the whole time. So I never really pushed. I just kept breathing through each contraction, and just telling myself that like my body knows what to do, and my body just sort of naturally pushed it out. I wouldn't say I really like helped it. I just sort of breathed through it and just felt it, and just really thought about like baby lowering, and with each contraction just, you know, pushing my baby out, but just letting my body naturally do it. So the midwife kept checking, but not really keeping me up to date. Like, it was all rather quiet. Like, I was making a few like moaning noises, but I wasn't, you know, screaming or talking or anything like that. My husband, you know, was sort of like reassuring me, but again, not really saying much. The midwife wasn't saying anything, so it was all quite quiet and calm, which was great. But at the same time, like, I'm just going through the waves of these pain and thinking, is it happening? Is she any closer? You know, is she coming in? Is she coming out? What's going on? To what point the pool had filled up more at this point, and I was sort of like managing to squat down low enough to get my back end under it. And the whole like ring of fire, I felt that, and I kind of felt like she'd come out to like half of her head. I had absolutely no pain relief at this point, like no gas in air, nothing was offered either, because it was just all happening so quick. So I felt absolutely everything, and I definitely felt like a head come out, and I was like, something is down there and it feels like it's in the way. So I said to the midwife at that point, like, is that her head? I can feel like something's coming out. And she was like, yeah, that's her head. She was like, you can reach down and touch it if you want. So like, reached down, touched it, really gave me like a massive boost of motivation, and like, oh my God, that's my baby girl, let's get this done. But yeah, it would have been nice for her to have sort of like updated me and been like, come on, that's her head, carry on, you're doing great. But no, nothing. So I'm glad that I asked. So after that, I keep just letting my body do its thing, and then I turn over. She asked me to turn over onto my back just so that she could check things, and then I have another contraction, so I go to turn back onto like all fours, because that was like the best relief for me. And she was like, no, stay there, I need you to stay on your back. And I was like, oh no, please, like really wanting to turn back over. And she was just like, no, I need you there, I need to help baby out. So basically she was like coming out with her arm like this. So on the next contraction, the midwife had to sort of like scoop her arm out and help her come out, and then that was sort of like her half out. And then the next contraction, she fully come out, and I got to pick her up and put her on my chest. Well, I was hoping to put her on my chest, and I did put down as one of my birth preferences to have delayed cord clamping. But as I'd gone to pull her up and put her to my chest, she'd got such a short cord, I couldn't even, I went to put her on my chest and was like, oh my God, I felt like I'd nearly pulled something out my hoo-ha. So I kind of like held her as high as I could. She was just about out the water, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't bring her any closer because I can literally feel her cord, like the cord against me. And the midwife was just like, you know, I'm really sorry, but we're gonna have to cut the cord now so that I can lift her up more and whatever. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And you know, you can't have everything. Births go in all different wonderful ways. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. So my husband got to cut the cord, and then I could lift her up and put her on my chest, and it was the most amazing, magical moment. So I'm just sat there, you know, like loving this time. And then next contraction comes, because obviously you have to birth the placenta as well. Next contraction comes, and this is 3 minutes later, so I've just given birth to her, and then 3 minutes later the next contraction comes, and out comes my placenta. So I didn't need any injections to help it along. There was no contraction after contraction or hours later. Literally 3 minutes after my daughter was born, out comes the placenta, and that's job done really. She was born at 6:27, so I got in the birth pool at, I think it's 6:10, I think. My iPad's died, so I've lost my notes now. I'm pretty sure it's 6:10. It was. So I got in, I was examined and then got in the pool at 6:10, and then baby girl was born at 6:27. So yeah, I would say that it was approximately like 20 minutes of pushing, but I know that sort of like I was having the urges to push earlier on. I was just sort of fighting them because I was in the car. So yeah, I'd probably say like half hour and she was out of pushing. So yeah, that was it. And the midwife actually said like if we'd have left it like another 10 minutes at home, she probably would have been born in the car park. So I'm very glad that Dan was rushing me out the house, because like I say, had I have not listened to him, or had I have, you know, kept telling myself like, oh no, we've got hours, let's stay at home, she would have either been born in the car on the way over or in the car park. So yeah, I'm glad I got there when we did. But yeah, it was a really positive experience. Like I say, out of all the videos that I'd watched, nothing really prepared me for it, because everything that I'd watched, as positive as they were still hours and hours long. Like, they'd get contractions and then they'd go to hospital and the midwife would be like, oh no, you're only 3 centimetres, go home, or oh yeah, you're 4 centimetres, let's keep you in, but then it'd still be hours later. So from start to finish, it was 3 hours. I'd had my first contraction at 3:30 and then she was born at 6:27, so like 6:30. So from start to finish, it was 3 hours. And yeah, I weren't prepared for that in any way whatsoever. I did not think that from the first contraction to her being in my arms would be 3 hours. And looking back now, I don't think any birth is easy. But yeah, I didn't have any medication just because there wasn't really time. Like I say, we'd got to hospital at like 10 to 6, so I'd already done like nearly 2 hour or an hour and a half at that point. No, 2 and a bit hours. And yeah, by the time we'd got in there and she'd examined me, we were like in the birth pool, got to get going, focusing on that. So I wasn't offered anything. Not really that. I think if I was that bad, I probably would have asked for it, but I was just sort of breathing through it, and yeah, it just, like I say, all happened so quick. That's the only birth I had, so I can't really compare it to anything else. But yeah, either way, it was a really good experience, absolutely amazing. Like, I can't even describe how amazing the feeling was of her like coming out, being in my arms. Oh my god, like, yeah, I'd go through it all again, 100%. But yeah, as positive as my birth story was, and I hope that anyone watching this thinks, you know, if you're a first time mom, or even if you're not and you've had a long labour previously, just listen to your body. And even if the midwives and everyone else are saying, you know, it's your first baby, it can take hours and hours, if you feel it is that intense, listen to your body and tell them until they listen to you. Because it was positive, I loved it, I loved my birth, it was great, but I'm still extremely frustrated and feel let down by how belittling sort of like all the staff made me feel. Like, yes, it was my first birth, and yes, probably the majority of people, it can be, you know, hours and hours long, but it's not everyone fits that. And I think they should have sort of looked at me and how much pain I was in. And like I say, whether I was in that much pain because she was there ready to come, or whether I was in that much pain just because I wasn't coping with it, like, they should have examined me, looked at the situation, either offered me pain relief or been like, oh yes, okay, she's actually on her way. So that's the only thing that I look back and think, I really wish, like, one, the reception, like, the first thing I'd always get asked is, oh, is it your first baby? As if, you know, like, oh, is it your first baby because you've got hours to come yet, and, you know, you think this is painful, give it another 6 hours and see how you are. So yeah, I'd say that was the only thing that was like a little bit frustrating for me, was just how much I kind of felt like everyone just kept asking me questions and they weren't really looking and assessing the situation to be like, yes, okay, it's your first baby, but you look in a hell of a lot of pain, let's examine you. Or you look in a hell of a lot of pain, can I offer you any pain relief? It was just sort of like, oh, it's your first baby, and like, oh, let's get in the room, okay, what's your address, and all quite slow. And yeah, but that's the only thing that I would say that frustrated me. Other than that, it was absolutely amazing. And I really hope that any future births go as well as that did. I didn't need any stitches. Yeah, it was just absolutely amazing. I know that every birth can be different. I know that you know, people didn't tear with their first one, which then you'd presume they wouldn't, but they've tore with their second child. I know people that have had a really quick delivery to start, like for their first one, and then, you know, it's taken hours, or they've needed an induction or whatever for their next baby. So I just really hope that for my next baby, it goes just as quick. I think the main reason being that because that one went so quick, if the next one doesn't, I'm just going to be sort of like sat around thinking like, why is it still going on? What's happening? And sort of like freaking me out a little bit. So yeah, I really hope the next one goes just as quick. But like I say, for anyone watching this that thinks that it's their first baby, so they're preparing themselves for hours and hours, do prepare yourself for that, but also prepare yourself for the fact that it can come on very quick, very suddenly, very intensely, and it can all be over and done with within hours. So yeah, I really wanted to, and that's why I didn't manage to get any videos or pictures, because there just wasn't time to think about it. At no point did I think about getting the camera out to even take a picture of anything, because I was just, yeah, focusing on that. But yeah, so I hope for anyone watching this, and this is why I still wanted to film a story, even though I've not got any pictures, I just really wanted to explain and tell my story, because I really wish that I'd seen someone's birth story as a first time mom, or even after, of how their birth progressed really quickly, because I was not prepared for it. Like I say, I'd had in my head like, oh yeah, when I know that I'm in labour, I can do my hair, I'll do my makeup, you know, I'll change the bed, we can just chill for a bit. No, absolutely no time for any of that. And then because I still had in my head that it was going to be hours, and I was having to properly breathe on all fours through the contractions after like 20 minutes, I then started to doubt myself, thinking I cannot cope with this, like I'm not going to make it through this labour whatsoever. So yeah, I just hope for anyone out there that this just gives like a different story, and also prepares you in a different way to listen to your body. That yeah, if you're thinking this is thick, fast and it's coming on strong, listen to your body and tell your midwife and get yourself to hospital. But I hope this was an enjoyable, or at least informative video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have got any questions about how my birth went, or you want to know anything in more detail, or anything like that, you've got questions about anything, just pop them down below and I'll be sure to reply to them. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to stick around, then please hit the subscribe button. It is free and you can change your mind at any point, but I would really, really appreciate it. But thank you very much for now, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.